Share my screen, screen 2, share. Got a video, turn my sound on. All right. Let's see. All right, are you able to see my PowerPoint okay?
Yep.
All right, awesome. So I cannot see you guys, so feel free if you have your hand up and engage at any time just to stop me and ask questions. So that'll be wonderful. So this quote here, I don't know who came up with this quote, but I'm stealing it from Lisa Bishop, who attended International Assembly. And the quote is, "We develop leaders who have the ability to dream, and we offer them the tools and resources to realize those dreams." That's really the goal of the Rotary Foundation, is to have the access to resources so you can realize dreams in your local community and abroad. And you just got to figure out how to tap that money. And that is the purpose of this presentation, is to help you all learn how you can access the resources of the Rotary Foundation to make an impact in your community. So in this session, we're hoping to cover a couple of objectives, describe how the funding process works to fund projects supported by grants, compare 3 different types of grant opportunities available to you, prepare grant proposals for you to review, and also to help build out your network for collaboration and work with other Rotary clubs. So there are a couple of different Rotary Foundation programs. There are project grants, district grants, and global grants, which is what we're going to cover in depth today. We also have scholarships, we have vocational training teams, and then we all know about our huge effort to eradicate polio. There's also the Rotary Peace Centers and Disaster Relief Fund. So we have 7 areas of focus. Our district is engaged in all of these different areas of focus. And I've got a little video here I'd like to preview for you all to see how we're all engaged in these different areas of focus. And you can have access to this link. I can send out the PowerPoint slide if you're interested. The links are on here, and I can send that to you by email. All right, so all of our clubs are actively engaged in the 7 areas of focus. So now we want to talk about how we get the resources to carry out and execute those projects. So how do we do that? All right, before we talk about the grant process, I think it's really important to know where do we get those resources? Contributions to people of action. So contributions come from Rotarians from all over the district. And contributions can go to a variety of different Rotary programs. We've got the Polio Plus, which helps with polio eradication. You can donate to the annual fund share, the endowment share program, or to specific global grants projects or a particular area of focus. It's important to know if you donate to a specific area of focus, that money does not come back to the district. It goes to that area of focus, which can be used in World Fund type projects. If you donate to the annual fund share, that does come back to the district. If you donate to the endowment share, your principal stays and is invested over perpetuity, and any income and dividends that's invested comes back to the district. Okay, so when you donate to the Rotary Foundation, it is held for 3 years, and there is a reason for that we'll talk about a little bit later. Okay, after 3 years, 47.5% of that comes back to the district to use for projects such as global grants or club grants, and 47.5% goes to the World Fund to fund global grants and other types of projects. Okay, so that 3-year hold, this is actually why I started to become really involved with the foundation, because I thought this was an excellent strategy for them. They hold the contributions for 3 years. It just gives the districts times to plan for projects 3 years out. It makes strategic planning a lot easier. And it also allows them to pay for fundraising costs and administrative costs, so your donation can be realized to make an impact on actual projects. So that's why they have the 3-year hold. So what does it look like with 100% $100 contribution? Like I said, $47.50 goes to the World Fund, $47.50 goes to the district designated fund to be used on projects here, and then $5 goes towards operating expenses. So what is your share for DDF 2023-2024? The reason we're talking about 2023 and 2024 instead of 22-23 is because the 22-23 grant cycle just closed out April 30th. So we're already looking out to 23-24. So 23-24, we're going to look at what were the contributions from Rotarians in 2019-2020. They donated $227,000 to the annual fund share. That's been sitting and investing for 3 years, and all that investments help pay for admin expenses. 50% of that, and it's not 47.5 because we had old rules a couple years ago. 50% will go to the World Fund, or $113,000, and 50% comes back to our district to be used for our Rotary programming. In addition to that, we have several Rotarians who have left endowment funds, and any investments in dividends and income that's been made on that, which is approximately $5,000 a year, also comes back to the district to help support funds. So at the end of the day, we have around $237,000 to make an impact in the world. Like I mentioned, 50% of that, $118,000, goes to the World Fund for global transformation, and $118,000 comes back locally for us to decide how we want to use that. And we use that largely for club and district grants. Okay, so most importantly, how do I tap into this $119,000, right? So the District Rotary Foundation Committee will advise the district governor and the District Rotary Foundation chair on a budget that allocates district designated funds among a variety of Rotary programs based on Rotarian priorities. Like I mentioned earlier, the bulk of the money that we use typically goes to district and global grants. We do set some money aside for vocational training teams and scholarships. If you want to know a little bit more about those, you can always contact the appropriate chair or the Rotary Foundation chair as well. And I have a link here that'll take you to the district contacts page so you can find their information. So what are the grant opportunities in District 7090? There are 2 opportunities. We've got district grants and we got global grants. A district grant is a single block grant from the Rotary Foundation. It's awarded annually to the district for the club and district purposes. Clubs must be qualified, and we'll talk about what it means to be a qualified club in a little bit. There is a review committee that's made up of District 7090 Rotarians to help folks through that process. Your project can be local, but it can also be international. I think this is something some folks don't always understand. They think a district grant has to benefit their community, but it can benefit an international project. It's a good way to kind of dip your toes in the water before you get involved with the global grant. My own club, we worked with purchasing tablets for a school in South Africa. Okay, these projects tend to be small, but they're mighty projects with a flexible budget. Clubs typically fund 50% of the project, and the district will match 50% up to $2,000 per project. So what that means is if you have a $4,000 project, your club will pay $2,000 and the district will pay $2,000. If your club has a $5,000 project, your club would pay $3,000 and the district would pay $2,000. So it's a great opportunity for all the funds, money, the contributions that you give to the Rotary Foundation to get that back into your own club and into your own community. These types of projects typically encourage active Rotarian participation. I say encourage, it's not a requirement, but we do encourage that you have projects where Rotarians can be hands-on. Most importantly, this is a reimbursement grant. So what that means is that the district will reimburse you the $2,000 match after you've completed the individual project report and the receipts, bank statement, canceled checks, and all of that is submitted. So it's important that you have enough cash on hand to front load the project and be reimbursed at a later point. There's some stewardship guidelines that you have to adhere to. And one thing I do want to mention with district grants is that it has to be of a humanitarian need. There is some confusion. A lot of people think that these grants have to be tied to one of the 7 areas of focus, and that is not true. For our district, it just has to meet a humanitarian need for a district grant. Global grants are a little bit different. It's an award granted from the Rotary Foundation for Rotary Club projects. You typically partner with a club in another country. And within our district, we are a binational district, so a Canadian club could partner with a US club for a global grant. We have 2 different types of supports to help you out with a global grant. We have the International Services Committee that can help you guide you through planning and implementation. We also have the Global Grants Chair and the District Rotary Foundation Chair. And the role of those 2 is to certify that you've been a qualified club. You also get support from Rotary International. You'll be assigned a grant officer and you'll have access to a cadre of advisors that help you navigate through the process. Your application for global grants goes through the Grant Center on the Rotary International website. These are typically large-scale projects, a minimum budget of $30,000 or more. They have a sustainable, measurable impact. These grants must align with an area of focus, so it's different than district grants. You do a community assessment to address the important need identified in the community and strengthen the community's capacity to address its own needs. It's really important that Rotary clubs aren't telling other communities what they need or what they should do. They should really partner with that community and really have it come ground up. And of course, there's also stewardship guidelines as well. So with district grants, there are 2 opportunities. This past year, we just introduced collaborative district grants. You might also know them as cluster grants. These are really excellent ways to do large scale projects with that $2,000. So what do I mean by that? For example, this past year, we had the St. Catharines clubs, five clubs in Southern Ontario team up. Rotary and Rotaract clubs come together, and they are now doing a $21,000 project with the district grants because each of the clubs contributed $2,000 and a Rotaract contributed $500. And with the district match, you know, that $11,000 came up to $22,000. So it's really cool. So collaborative or cluster grants are 2 or more District 7090 clubs develop an impactful project. Each club in the project must be qualified, and we'll talk about what those qualifications are. This will count as their priority project for all clubs involved. So what does that mean? So at the end of the term, if not enough clubs have applied or we have money left over, we'll allow secondary applications and we'll fund 2 projects for a club. You know, we'll do it until the money runs out. One club must designate a lead club for the project that's responsible for the administration and of the individual project report and documentation. So if you partner with 4 other clubs, we're not going to make all 5 clubs submit receipts and bank statements. Just one club needs to do that. We try to make it as easy as possible. And because like I said, this is our first year really doing it. We're learning as we go. Lead clubs must file a collaborative district grant agreement, like an MOU. And then for our club district grant, just a single club working by themselves, you just have to be qualified. And you can submit up to 2 projects, a primary, then if there's money left over, there's a secondary as well. Both of these district grants opportunities, you have to have 2 members that are qualified to administrate the district grant. Each grant application must have at least 3 points of contacts. That's really important because you never know what's going to happen a year from now by the time your project is ended, or you might be sick. So it's always nice to have a backup there to help support you, get you through that process, because there are tight timelines in filing these grant applications. So each grant application has to have 3 points of contact, like I said. Rotarians must be of good standing, meaning that they've paid their dues. And your contacts don't necessarily have to be the folks who went to the qualifying seminar, but we do prefer that because it does make things just a little bit easier if they know what's going on and what the process is. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the folks who went to the qualifying seminar. You do have flexibility. You have to adhere to the RI terms and conditions for Rotary Foundation district grants and global grants, and complete the application in Club Runner, the Club Runner module. Right. So before I move on to how you become a qualified club, are there any questions on the different types of district grants? And I can't see you, so feel free to come off mute and speak. Okay. All right. So how do you become qualified for a club grant? Your club dues must be in good standing. Club foundation chair must be identified, and Rotary Foundation goals have been entered into myrotary.org's Club Central. 2 active club members must complete one of the 2 training options below. You can go in online learning module and complete 2 different courses, or you can attend a live session, which is a lot more fun. You get to meet more people on district designated funds. Your club president and your club president-elect must sign the DDF Memorandum of Understanding. And so how do you do some of these steps? I'll just take you through these. I'm not going to do a live demo because you never know what's going to go on with your computer, but I've got some screenshots up here. So to designate a foundation chair, step 1 is to log in to my.rotary.org. You just click the sign in button there, and that'll take you to sign in. Once you're signed in, you can go to the ribbon up here to manage, club and district administration, and then club administration. And then you can hit add, edit, remove club officers. Now, if you don't have access to any of these options, it might mean that you don't have access. So you want to contact your club president or your area governor, and they can help get you designated as a club foundation chair. Okay, so once you're in this add, edit, remove club officers, one of the things you want to do, because I have done this so many times, make sure you're in the right term, especially this time of year. If you're designating for next year, make sure you do this drop down and get into the right year. If there's no chair designated, you'll see a plus sign here you'll want to click, and then it'll bring you all the list of members in your club. Just select the right one and click OK. If the wrong person has been selected, you can click the ... and just change it to the right person. Okay. All right. So the next step after you've designated a club foundation chair is that we do ask everyone to identify some foundation goals. We think that's really important to go into Club Central and do that. There's 2 different ways to do that. You can use the ribbon and go to manage, club and district administration in the Rotary Club Central. The second way to do it, as soon as you log into My Rotary, you can just scroll down a little bit and it's right there, view club goals. One way to do that. All right. So once you're in there, you want to enter your goals. On the left-hand side is this goal center. You'll click that. You'll go to Rotary Foundation Giving. It's the second option here. And like I said, make sure you're right in the right time period. You can navigate Rotary Years that way. Click edit, and then it'll open it up. So when you are doing your foundation goals, one of the things I want to stress is that it's a collaborative effort. It shouldn't be the club president. It shouldn't be the club foundation chair. I hope you have a committee, and I hope it's more than one person. It's really important to communicate with your presidential chain. My club designates it as the president-elect, and we call it a vice president. And also involve your board of directors and keep it in front and center at board meetings. And also at, we do 2 club assemblies a year where we talk about foundation goals. Okay. So once you hit that edit button, it's going to open up some links. Foundation is pretty easy because the Rotary Foundation tracks it all for us. We don't have to manually track it, but you can put in your goals. You can select which ones you want to do. You don't have to do all of them. Do what makes sense for your club and what's in your strategic plan. A rule of thumb for us at our club for our annual fund contributions, we had 68 members at the beginning of the year. So we took 68 and multiplied it by 100. That's our goal. And that's how we came up with that goal. Polio Plus is part of our strategic plan. And then of course, these others are just based on your club's capacity. Most importantly, I do this all the time. Don't forget to hit save. Okay, you want to hit the save button. All right, so that is Club Central. The other part to qualifying is training. Well, we do ask that 2 people from each club be trained. We have 2 easy options for you. It used to be that you'd have to come in person to a training. Now it's really easy. My Rotary Learning Center has a couple of courses that we ask that you take. This is excellent if you like to learn at your own pace or you have a conflict with live training. And there's a video on how to do this. It's this video tutorial to navigate the Learning Center that'll show you how to do it. But we ask that you take the Rotary Foundation Basics and Club Rotary Foundation Committee Basics. The estimated time to completion is around 3 hours, 15 minutes. At the end, you'll get a certificate. You can email that to me in the upcoming year. I can help you become qualified. Alternatively, there is a live training. This is typically offered in the fall. There are 2 different dates for it and 2 different times. We actually just established those yesterday, but I can't remember the dates, but we will have them on the events page. And, feel free to check that out, bookmark it, and there'll be emails about it. This is virtual. It's a virtual Zoom. And the estimated time commitment's a 1 hour commitment compared to 3 hours of a learning module. So, and it's a lot more fun and interactive. Okay. All right. So the last part to qualifying is a DDF Memorandum of Understanding. And this can be found on the district website. You want to go to committees, the Rotary Foundation, district and global grants, and you want to go to the term you're looking for, which we have 22-23 here. That, like I mentioned earlier, that cycle just closed out April 30th. So you'll be looking for 23-24. That should be opening up here in the summer, early fall. And once you get in there, on the left-hand side, you'll see Club MOU form. That's the one you want to click, open, read, and have your president and president-elect download. Some other helpful resources as well. The one I do highly recommend that you read is the terms and conditions for district and global grants. That's really important that you understand what's in that. Okay, so before we move on there, any questions about how a club becomes qualified? Okay, so how do you become qualified? Well, you've become qualified. Yeah,
Aaron,
go ahead.
Good morning, John Berenke here. Just a simple kind of a correction in terms of being able to enter your foundation objectives or goals into my Rotary. You have to be an officer or be assigned that kind of responsibility. For example, I cannot, as a club member in my club, go in and put in foundation goals. Our foundation chair can do it, our president can do it, our vice president can do it. That's the only correction I would make here. Not everybody in the club can participate in putting in the foundation goals for the club. Thank you.
Correct. Yes, that's why it's really important and why we mandate that you have to have a club foundation chair identified. Yep. So it's your club foundation chair, your treasurer or president or secretary that can do that. Yep. Any other questions? All right, so you've been qualified. Now what do you do? Well, there's a couple of steps that you want to take. First is brainstorming an idea, right? And coming up with something. Planning your project, completing the application in Club Runner. Once you do that, typically sometimes there's some collaboration with your lead reviewer and getting things ironed out and specific. Once it's been approved, you got to wait for a block grant approval from the Rotary Foundation, and then you get approval and you can implement your project. Sometimes you might have to modify your project. We all get it. You're going to submit an application typically between January and April. We'll get approval from international typically around September. So you'll implement September and between September and April. Supply chain issues crop up, prices change, and there might be a modification. So we get that. And then of course you implement, you celebrate. You got to go out and tell the community what's going on, what you've done, how it's made an impact, hopefully inspire and bring other people into your club. And then the last part is getting your money, right? And to get the money, because it's a reimbursement grant, there are a couple of steps you got to take. And that just helps us with transparency and good stewardship. So we can be a 4-star foundation on Charity Navigator. So that's why we do that. So it's a small group today, so we're not going to go into breakout groups, but I just want to ask folks on the call, and maybe I'll stop sharing my screen here so we can see each other. So I can see you guys. What are some best practices around brainstorming a new project? How do you guys do it in your clubs?
We have one person in our club who finds projects for us, Aaron. And that's Shafali, and she is excellent at it. And but she went to us, and actually by her bringing projects to us, we actually start thinking of other things we might want to consider doing. And it doesn't hurt to have speakers come in and tell us their stories about what they might have a need for locally, and maybe something that we can use a district grant on. So we've done that before in the past too.
Excellent, thank you. Don, how about your club?
We did you say Diane or John? Sorry, I got confused.
Oh, John, yeah, I saw your hand up.
Very, very simple kind of thing. We established, finally, it took a while to do it, we finally established a grants committee. There are 5 characters in that. Several of them are experienced, and some of them are less experienced, and perhaps a little more creative, but that's not necessarily true. So we have a kind of a grants committee, and we look around the community. We cast a wide net for what might be needed. We do some research into are these couple of things that we've identified viable, and will they do in fact what we want them to do, and that is in fact enhance the quality of life in the community. So we have a committee.
Excellent, great. Rob, how about your club?
Yeah, we're very fortunate in that we have sort of a pretty wide net that we cast over the community, and so we leave it up to individual members to come back to our foundation committee with particular ideas in and around district grants, and actually in and around global grants as well. So the part that we're doing is we push it out. We follow the timeline basically you were saying, and it comes back and gets funneled through my committee, the foundation committee, to decide if this is worthwhile and to present it to the club.
Excellent. Diane, did you have a comment you wanted to share, or I see your hand up? Okay, all right. Well, good. So I think we've shared mostly, oh, what happened here? Okay, yeah, I think we shared mostly. PowerPoint doesn't like this. Okay, here we go. Can you see that now? So I think we have mostly everything that's on here. Evaluating, are there voices missing from the table, and invite those missing voices. Researching community needs. A lot of municipalities will have a community assessment on their website. If they don't, we do have a template on the grants website where you can download a free template to walk you back there. I think Scott mentioned it helps reflecting on past speakers. Was there a need identified that can spark an idea? Ideate, when you're brainstorming, no idea is stupid, no idea is too small, no idea is too large. And I think what Rob was saying, sometimes you might be thinking about a district grant and it balloons to a global grant. So with that $30,000 minimum budget. So, just keep the ideas going and blending. Achieving buy-in from the board of directors and the club is really important. And then of course, begin planning for the project. Knowing what you can and can't do for a district grant is really important. And so here I have a list. It's not exhaustive of all the things that you cannot do with a district grant. If you want an exhaustive list, you can click this link, RI terms and conditions. I'm not going to go over this, but it's just, be aware and careful of that. Okay, so planning and application. So what are some best practices around planning your grant and any tips you've learned over the last couple of years when you're applying for a district grant that you want to share with the group? And I'll open it up. I know we've got some grant writers here.
You need details. You need a lot of details. Get your costs down. Get the details.
Yes.
Get your budget in place properly. And the more specific you can be, the more likely is your grant is. Sorry.
Thank you, Scott. Anyone else?
I find, Aaron, it's always good, even within your club, to know and understand who has responsibility for what. So in other words, in our club, myself, as well as one or two others, have become the experts on making sure that everything gets done properly, like the templates, making sure that everything has been written out properly, everything gets funneled into Club Runner appropriately type of thing. So you almost need that support mechanism with these things as well to make these things work. My experience over the years is that the devil's in the details. I think I can sort of go along with Scott on that one.
Yeah. And having a team and a committee is so important. Many hands make light work.
Well,
anyone else?
Little things like the fact that you are technically supposed to get out multiple bids on various parts of the project. You just can't say, well, we've decided to buy this particular thing for this organization. You have to go out and get multiple bids to show that you've been most cost effective. A lot of the details, and it does take somebody within the club with lots of expertise to get it through, or lots of help from the district people to do it. It's a challenge. It's a real challenge.
Yeah. So, and we have been trying to make it a lot easier over the last couple of years. And one of those changes that we did change was that bid process. So now you just really need a minimum of one quote to try and make that a little bit easier. But a best practice is to have multiple quotes. But we understand there are some situations where, one quote makes the most sense.
Progress.
Yeah. Any other comments? All right. Flip back and forth here to share the screen here. All right. And all right. Oh, here we go. All right. So, like we all said, describe your project objective and humanitarian need. Be as specific as possible so you don't veer off the road. What I will say here is it is very important to be detailed, but sometimes less is more. I think sometimes people go down a rabbit hole. We're really not trying to make it difficult and expect academic papers. And each reviewer is a little bit different. And John's going to talk a little bit about his philosophy. And I know me as a reviewer, 2 or 3 sentences is really all I need. But community assessment and impact. So include your partners in the discussion if you're going to partner with another organization. A lot of these grants, you typically partner with a nonprofit in your local community. And with a lot of these grants, typically you'll write them a check for $4,000 and trust them to go out and do the purchasing of the materials or equipment or supplies because they've got the technical expertise. and they probably have the relationship with the vendors to get the best deal. And because you are doing that, and this is a reimbursement grant, we do ask that you have a letter of partnership. And this letter of partnership, it needs to be very specific, and it needs to say a couple of things. And this is where most people get hung up the most, I find, with grants, and we have to send it back, is that it has to have this particular statement. Okay, Aaron Carlson's nonprofit organization will provide the Rotary Club of Amherst South with copies of invoices, canceled checks, and other receipts that support the disbursement of funds from the Rotary Club. And the reason we need this in that letter is so that all parties are aware of the responsibilities of the documentation that is required to provide at the end of the project to get that check from the district. Unfortunately, we've ran into situations where clubs have had partners that didn't keep good records of invoices or canceled checks, and that club had to front all of the costs. So to protect clubs, we really do try to make sure that the letter of partnership has this statement in there so everyone involved in the project knows what is required of them. Planning an application, you want to make sure and evaluate that there's no conflict of interest. And if there is, how do you navigate that? How does your club plan to celebrate the success and educate the community? You want to go ahead and start thinking about that at the beginning. Are cooperating organizations needed? Does your club have the technical expertise to implement the project, or do you need to pull in another partner? Okay, what's your implementation plan look like? Make sure it's flexible and robust. You cannot expend your club's funds or the anticipated matching dollars until after you receive full approval from the district club grants chair. When you have an application in, you're going to receive conditional approval that basically says your application looks great. We're going to include it in the application to RI, but you can't spend the money until RI approves it. Once RI approves it, we'll let you know you're fully approved. Go ahead and start spending money. The reason this is important is because when you submit receipts and checks and bank statements, we look at the dates to make sure that the date is past the approval date from RI. It cannot be before then. Okay. Want to look at your timeline, when do you plan to purchase the supplies, have a service project date, stewardship, what's your public plan look like, public image, communication, and all of that. Projects must be completed with all documentation and individual project reports to the district by April 30th. It's important to remember that it's a block grant. So what that means is that one Rotary club can hold up all clubs from getting their money. We cannot submit to RI club by club. We have to submit it all together. So it's really important that everyone comes together and supports the initiative and goes by the timelines. Okay. So what do? I don't tell my nonprofit partners when I implement a grant deadline that the deadline is April 30th. I tell them it's March 15th. I say that's when we have to have this completed by. That's when everything has to be purchased and everything has to be cashed and all of that, because that gives me from March 15th to April 30th to do what I need to do for our club to get reimbursed. And I have a personal life, so I don't want to do it all last minute. Okay. Like Scott mentioned, have a budget, prepare your budget, make sure that looks good. I would love to encourage you all, if you have the capacity, for your board to include a line item for your district grant. We know it's going to be at least $2,000 for the upcoming year. Sometimes it's $3,000, but for the last couple of years, it's been $2,000. Include that line in your grant, in your budget, even if you don't know what grant you're going to work on. If you end up not doing a district grant, that's okay. That's $2,000 in your budget. You can do something else with, or you can do a larger project in the upcoming year. A minimum of one quote is required. We did change that recently for sourcing and equipment. All budgets have to be in US dollars. There is an exchange rate here. It's not exhaustive. I just worked with another club that's doing a project in Kenya, and Kenya wasn't on the exchange rate sheet. That's okay. I just went to Google and did USD to KSD or whatever it was, and we got the exchange rate from Google. So suppliers, they need to be identified. Funding sources must be identified for revenue as well. Typically it's your district and club. or other clubs if you have a collaborative grant. Be realistic, plan for contingencies. Like I mentioned, you're going to apply for a district grant typically between January and April. You're not going to implement until between September and April. So plan for contingencies. And dude, where's my quote? Like I mentioned this timeline, we get it. Supply chain issues come up, prices change, seasonal fluctuations. My own club, we wanted to purchase some trash cans for a park. It was like $400 when we applied for the grant. And then like 6 months later, it's $800. So we get it, things happen. Just keep your reviewer updated on those things and plan for contingencies and that your club can still carry out the project. Applications are rolling until April 15th. This year it was April 30th. We are going to push the deadline back to April 15th. And like I said, it's because we're, these are block grants, so we have to have every club on board and prepared before we can submit that to RI. So for the upcoming grant cycle, the deadline will be April 15th, but you can apply anytime once you become a qualified club, and that's attending either my Learning Rotary Center sessions or doing the live training. Or when the budgeted funds are depleted. If all the funds are depleted, then we'll stop taking applications. But we do everything in our power to approve every grant that we can. So that might be pulling money from other areas. We will try to do that because we know this is important for folks. All applications must be submitted to the 7090 Club Runner website. You'll need to click on the member area once you go to this website. Okay. If you don't know your password, you can contact Penn 8 or you can contact your area governor and we can walk you through it. Club Runner, if you've never been to the district Club Runner, it is basically the same login as your club's Club Runner. Okay. Once you log in there, your screen will probably look a little bit different than mine. But once you become qualified, we give you access to grants. And if you don't have access, you can email Leslie or myself, and we'll check in to see why you don't have access. But you should have access to grants. You go to My Club Grants, and then you click Submit a Grant Request. Okay, and take time to read the narrative boxes. That'll make it so much easier in going back and forth with your reviewer. All the reviewers are friendly. We love to help you out. But when folks get frustrated, it's usually because they didn't read the narrative box, which gives you really detailed instructions on how to do everything. Once you have read the narrative, complete the project details. So you can put in the project name, select the project year. I think this is auto-populated. And then the description. Again, we're not looking for academic papers. Really 1 to 2 sentences for the description is all we need at this point. And the reason we ask for 1 or 2 sentences is because when we submit it to RI, we have to give them an abstract. There's a character limit. It's about 2 sentences. And this is the description we use to submit to the Rotary International. If you don't like how small the box is, just a fun tip, something I learned that I have to share with everyone. You click these little 3 lines at the very bottom right-hand corner. You can play with the box and make it larger, which is kind of nice. You want to put in your estimated budget in US dollars. Okay. The district club grants chair will receive your request. They'll just make sure that the description box meets a humanitarian need, and then they will give you full access to put in an application, and they'll let you know that. You'll log back into My Club Runner. You'll go to Grants, My Club Grants, View Club Grants, and then if you have 1 application, you'll just have 1. If you're lucky enough to have 2 applications, you'll have 2. Just click Open on the application you want to work with. Once you are in there, you'll see this ribbon here. Details you've already done. Application is what you'll need to do. Budget is what you'll need to do, and documents. The rest of it you'll be working with a little bit later. So you complete the full application by completing each of these parts. And when you click this little caret triangle button here, it'll drop down and it'll look like this. For general description, like I said, it tells you exactly what you need to say or do in this spot here. You click edit and you write your responses. Each reviewer is going to be a little bit different. I typically don't need to see an academic paper. As long, I mean, it's a $2,000 grant. So, you know, as long as you give me a couple of sentences and it meets a humanitarian need, I'm typically good to go with that. You know, our job here is to help you make an impact in your community and not hinder progress. Okay, so once you complete those sections of the application, you want to do your budget. Okay, and I have two examples here of what a budget can look like. To add a budget item, you click the add a budget item. You put a description here. We do need a supplier, but this one is for food supplies. So they're buying a bunch of different types of food supplies. They uploaded a document with an Excel spreadsheet with like the different types of food supplies they were going to put in the food bag or whatever, and what the approximate cost was going to be. This grant application down here wanted to buy a projector and a couple of laptops and Office Depot, and so they itemized there within the budget. You can either itemize it within the budget or just send an Excel spreadsheet into the documents. Okay. So under the documents section, you can be really organized and have an add folder, and you can have a folder for closeout documents and a folder for application documents. It's not necessary. I do it that way because I'm a type A person and I like to be organized. You can simply just hit add and add the documents you need. Most grants will require a letter of partnership and at least one quote is mostly what you'll see there. So some folks might add a little bit more, but yeah. So once you click this add button here, it'll bring you to this screen, and you just put a title of the document, letter of support. You can put in a description if you want, totally optional. If you want to be organized and put it into a specific folder, you can. Choose file, find it on your computer, hit OK, and then hit save, and that'll bring it up to you. At that point, you're pretty much ready to submit the grant. So at the top right-hand corner, you'll have all kinds of different buttons. One will be submit. Well, you might have different buttons than I have, but mostly you'll have submit, and then you'll have request more information and provide more information. And that's how you communicate with your grant reviewer. Every club gets matched with a grant reviewer. Some will just work with you through email. Others will work with you through the club runner communication system. I typically work with people through email. But if you are working through the club runner, basically you communicate through a button that says provide information, and you type your response. The reviewer would say request information and type their response. And you can see the back and forth communication by going to the activity log in that ribbon I showed you earlier. So this ribbon here, activity log. And that's where you can see the communication back and forth. Okay. So how does approval process work? When your lead reviewer will walk you through it. Once they are satisfied you've met all of the requirements, they will advance it, and a second Rotarian on the committee will review it. Once they've voted yes, a third Rotarian will review it. Once they voted yes, your grant is approved to be put into the block application, but you can't implement just yet. Once all clubs are completed by the deadline and we get the application together, we submit it to Rotary International. They look at it, just make sure nothing looks funny. They approve it, and then typically we get approval by September and you can start implementing. There have been years where it was October, late October, but we try to really get it done as fast as we can. Yeah. All right, so that's enough of me talking. I want to hear what are some best practices from your club on being people of action. You've got the okay, you've got the approval from the district that RI is good with our projects. You can start implementing. What does your club do to implement the project? What are some best practices?
I guess I can start, Aaron.
Rob? Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a pretty strenuous process to get to that particular stage. You you went through it a bit. But once you get through and you get to that spot, and once all the monies have come into play, we usually go one step further and spend some time with the group that we're being involved with, going through and mapping out the overall plan that's going to come into play. They know that we are doing the approvals, but we don't really want to get into any of the details of implementation until we're absolutely sure that our grant has been approved and ready to move forward. So and then we just start into the process. So we had we did a global grant the other year that was even bigger. I don't know if we're going to talk about that at all this morning, Aaron, but my goodness, between the federal government here in Canada and all the other pieces, it was also a cluster grant. I mean, it came into like over $80,000 that was being put into a particular global grant. So, it was a matter of trying to tie together all of those other pieces when it was all said and done. So it took a little bit more work on that one for sure.
Yeah, excellent. How does Amherst South, when you guys implement, what do you get? What are your steps?
Well, the most important factor, I think, in implementation is making sure you have a pretty strong relationship with your partner where the project money is going, because there can be a lot of hiccups along the way in trying to get verification of where the money is being spent, getting the receipts, getting the cancel of checks, things of that nature to come through. So, establishing a strong relationship, I think, is really pivotal to getting that implementation done.
Yeah, really is. John, yeah.
One of the things that we have found has been very helpful is, we need three people: the primary contact, essentially the person who's going to do most of the writing, a secondary contact, and I'll say more about that a little bit later, but we also make certain that one of the three is our treasurer, our club treasurer, who happens to be a CPA. So she makes sure that everything that we need is in order and in a folder somewhere. And when we need to do the final report, bing, she just pulls those things up like crazy. So yeah, have a CPA on your committee.
Yeah. Very good advice. Oh, great.
I just add to what Scott said. I think the project we're involved in now, the main thing is to tell the people, well, first of all, was getting the supporting documentation on letterhead, but now don't spend the money, even though there's preliminary approval, because you'll wipe everything out if you do. We're actually having a sort of a dedication of the facility preliminary with the PR that we feel is appropriate for it, May 16th. But obviously, we're not going to be doing the project finally until sometime in September, October. So it's tough to keep the pieces where they have to be to meet Rotary's rules.
That's a great project. That's the fitness equipment
Yeah.
you're talking about. Yeah.
New
Excellent.
community center. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, good. All right. So, like you all said, it's pulling the team back together, Rotarians and collaborators, reviewing the grant project, confirming supplies and pricing, reviewing the timeline. Has anything changed? Reviewing grant terms and conditions. I think it's a good idea to review this again, that letter of partnership with your collaborators, so they know what the expectations are. Make any modifications that need to come up, implement your project, have fun, document, share, and of course, celebrate. So being the inspiration, how do your clubs celebrate your projects? How do you let the community know all the good work you've done? What are some best practices? John, how do you let the community know? What's your public image strategy?
Hey, you're going to ask me that question a little later on in this program, I think, and I'm ready to answer that question then. If you don't mind,
Fair enough.
I'm going to sidestep that for right now. Thank
Fair
you.
enough. Yeah. Oh, well, Sandy talked a little bit about it, right? About doing some PR with the community center.
Right. It's a toughie. We have sort of intermittent PR. When it works, I will, have something in the local paper or Amersby or whatever. But just like any other PR for any other project, you have to work at it and make sure the PR people are doing their thing.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Okay. So what do we have here? Let me back up here. Okay, let's see here. Took me back to the beginning. Okay, so what do we have here? So being the inspiration, taking photos of Rotarians in action. You heard my spiel at the beginning of why I joined Rotary. It's because I was scrolling through Facebook and saw a photo of some Rotarians doing some work at the canal in Lockport. And I said, wow, I want to be a part of that. So, taking action photos, transformative impact, it really does inspire folks. Taking pictures of a check creates awareness, but it leaves the community wondering what else happened. So, I think those action photos are really important. I'd really invite you to consider doing that. Invite any collaborators or sponsoring organizations to Rotary meetings as a speaker and hearing from them, what the impact was. Creating short thank you messages from the beneficiaries. This is excellent material for your Paul Harris celebration events to play them at. Play them at the beginning of a board meeting, just to remind the decision makers around the room, why are we here? Have it as a centering moment. Consider press releases, social media. Let other Rotarians know what you're up to in the district newsletter, because you might find a new collaborator for a cluster grant. Okay, so show me the money. Like I said, it's a reimbursement grant. Your club fronts the grant. The district will write you a check for 50% match up to $2,000 at the completion of the project. And filling out the individual project report and inspection of all the required documents. You do that by logging into Club Runner and you go to this individual project report. It doesn't take too long. Again, we're not looking for academic papers. So feel free to just put in a couple of sentences. It works. Okay. You'll need to revisit the documents and upload invoices for all the purchases. Make sure the date is after the full approval date, copy of canceled checks, copy of club bank statement, copy of credit card statement, if applicable, project photos. If you got press releases, you can upload that. Once the documents are uploaded and the individual project report is submitted, the district club grants chair will review the file for completion. They'll forward it to the Rotary Club chair for review, and then a check requisition will be issued. We'll try to do this as a presentation at your club, or it might be mailed, depending. This year was weird with COVID, but we've gone out and made some presentations. And then just a note, after that, the stewardship committee, there's a stewardship committee that also reviews the documents, and they have up until the second district council meeting in the following Rotary year to do that, and they might request additional stuff. But with that, we've got a panel of wonderful experts here, and I just want to thank Terry from the Rotary Club of St. Catharines, John from the Rotary Club of West Seneca, and Rob from the Rotary Club of Lincoln, and they're going to tell us a little bit about their experiences. So I want to invite you guys up and stop share screen here. And so welcome, guys and gals. And I think we're going to start with Rob. And I'm just curious, does your club budget for district grants? And tell us a little bit about that decision-making process.
Yeah, we, as a club, we do budget for district grants. We made a conscientious decision back about, 7, 8 years ago that we wanted to participate on a yearly basis for district grants. So we have a line item within our budget for it. Our club, we've done about 8 district grants since the start of that, as well as a global grant. And of course, that goes through the club and all has to be approved. We had last year, we actually came in with a second grant request, and that had to go right through the whole, working through the board, back to the club itself for full final approval. So we had to go above and beyond with the funding with that. But But generally speaking, we do have our finances in order as part of the overall budget process.
Excellent.
As my other phone goes off.
Thank you. And Terry, tell us a little bit about how you identify collaborative projects and approach other clubs to cluster funds together.
Well, we identify a project in terms of its focus regionally. I mean, we have 12 municipalities within, within Ontario here in Niagara that what we try to do is look at organizations that have a regional focus because we find that that makes it easier to approach other clubs because they're actually doing work within that municipality and focus. So this last one we did that. We had 5 Rotary clubs participate and a Rotaract club as well. So it's appealing to them. And it's also in a case where it's a regional organization. In many cases, the Rotary Club already has a relationship with them as well and is aware of the organization. So that certainly helps in identifying who might be a recipient of a grant.
Great. Thank you, Terry. So we've got a expert reviewer here, John. I love your philosophy on how you review grants. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Expert, that's going to be a hard act to follow. But thank you, I do appreciate that. First, let me do a couple of things so that I feel a little more comfortable talking about this. We have a lot of experienced people right here with us. We get some confusion when we use the words district grant. We use the words district grant 2 ways. One, a district grant is something that we get from the Rotary Foundation. It becomes part of the district designated funds as part of the share process. At the district level, we also use the words district grant to mean that grants of all sorts, but we also use it, the grants we give to clubs. And that causes some confusion, and that doesn't bother us a lot, but help people understand that district grants can be the biggies, but district grants, not just global, the whole thing, I mean, the whole schmear. But district grants, the way we sometimes talk about it in the district, we're talking about club grants, and that's kind of like what I'm talking about right now. And I use my kind of philosophy on this on several principles. First of all, the mission of the Rotary Foundation, and that is understanding goodwill, generating peace, and doing that by supporting education, improving of the health, and alleviating poverty. That's pretty big stuff. And so that's very easy to fit any kind of club grant within that scope. Then what I look at in terms of providing my philosophy, does the grant exist to really support those kinds of things? Can it support a local and or an international project? Because club grants can actually work within the international scene as well, not just across the border here in the district, but we can work with another place. We have worked with Mexico, for example. And we don't have to worry about areas of focus. It's that broad thing: education, welfare, and health. Okay. Now, when I've considered all that, my reviewing philosophy is quite simple. I use all my knowledge, all of my experience, all of the authority that I have, if I have any, and the assigned responsibility that the district gives me as a reviewer to ensure, and this is critical, to ensure that the clubs get their grant application approved and that we support them with the matching grant money that the district has. My responsibility and my philosophy is that they will get the money that they have asked for. They will be able to deliver on the project, and they will be able to carry it through to completion.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Oh, good. So Rob, membership is a high priority for Rotary. And can you just describe how the impact of your projects drives membership in your club?
Yeah, you and I had talked about this earlier, and we're actually finding within our club, not necessarily driving additional membership, although we've been very fortunate. We have increased in membership over the last few years, according to neutralized, of course, with the COVID crisis. But we find with the district grants, it's actually keeping our membership. It's you know, what we're trying to do within it is we're trying to make sure the views of our members of our club are coming through, and we're doing the great things within within the community that we should be doing. So it's kind of like a retention, really, when it's all said and done. I mean, you know, as a Rotarian, we can go and look and say, oh my goodness, like I'm part of that. I've been able to go and do something with that. So so that's kind of our view of that, Aaron.
That's excellent. Yeah, retention is critical. So awesome. Thank you, Rob. Terry, how does clustering club resources together make an even greater impact in the community?
Well, to give you an example, so the collaborative grant that we did with the 5 other Rotary clubs in Rotaract, we had supported through a district grant this organization before. It's called Food for Kids, and it provides food kits for children during the weekends, those that need that help. In this particular case, so originally we got $4,000 for them, and that equals approximately 1 month of food supplies for a school year. With this collaborative grant, should it be approved, it will allow this organization to provide food supplies for an entire school year. So that is a huge, in terms of their planning as well. I mean, think about it. If an organization receives enough funding to last them for the entire year, they can go on and plan other things. And it's either that they can buy the food supplies for a whole year, or they can go out and reach out to other schools in our area, which has a huge impact in the community on the number of children that can be served. The other part of it is the volunteer opportunities that this brings. It creates awareness within these other clubs of this organization if they hadn't been aware of them previously, and also the opportunity to either put the food kits together. They have a facility that you can go to and actually participate, or to deliver the food kits to the schools. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of involved. So there's a lot of people in our clubs, when we talk about membership, that want to be involved and do a hands-on. And this gives that opportunity not only to give cash dollars to an organization, but also to be involved personally if that's what you choose to do. So it's huge.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Terry. And John, Rotarians just do good work in the world. That's what we're all about, right? It's our character and our nature. We don't necessarily think anything else about it. Tell us why public image and telling our story is so important.
Wow, have things changed since I've been a Rotarian? They have really gotten very, very different. First off, let me say this. We are the image. Rotarians are the image. Rotary doesn't have an image problem. We know what Rotary is about. We know what Rotary is supposed to do. We don't really have an image problem. Our problem is getting understanding of our image and what we do, what we're responsible, but the kind of things that we want to do to make the world a better place. We need to get that out there. Now, there was a point in time, I was president one time in a club when it was absolutely wonderful. And all the presidents before me and the several presidents after me in that club was in another district. We're very fortunate in that in the club, we had the publisher and executive editor of the local daily newspaper. And every Rotary meeting, there was a photographer reporter at the Rotary meeting. And everything got covered in the newspaper. And it was wonderful because everybody in the surrounding area knew about Rotary. And the people who were in Rotary, not just the presidents, but the speakers and all that again, that was absolutely fantastic. That has gone away, as you all know. There's this major problem with how we're going to get this stuff out there. But we have a lot of other platforms to be able to deliver it. Yeah, and you know what those media platforms are. And that's part of the problem. The part of the problem is, which one do we want to use? Can we use all of them? How can we use all of them? Who do we get in our club, and how do we get support to this person in our club to be responsible for getting what we do, what we have done out there? It's my position. Yeah, we have to do that, by the way. We've got to get that stuff out into the press. We've got to let the people know out there. But in terms of image, it's up to us. It's up to each of us. And all of you out there are doing that. You wear your Rotary pin. If you're lucky enough, you wear you get a classy kind of Paul Harris pin. The guys used to wear neckties because we used to wear neckties that said Rotary on them. Or wear your Rotary hat.
Bow ties too.
And yeah, there you go. And wear your Rotary shirt. We have to do that. If we're doing a project, we're doing a service project for the community, let's engage all of that stuff. We're it. Let's put it out there. By the way, if we do that, membership is not going to be an issue. If the characters who are the leaders in the community see us and we nag them enough, they're going to want to be a part of Rotary. So yes, we do a service project, get all of this stuff together, get it out there. We are it. Stand tall, be the Rotarian, talk about it. Take the opportunity, even if it's not given to you, take the opportunity to go someplace and talk about Rotary, talk about the service project that you're doing or that you have done. Be out there, engage. Rotary is about engagement, shaking people's hands. This pandemic has caused us all kind of a problem. So it's time to renew that energy. And you're absolutely right, Aaron. Getting that image and that information out there is absolutely critical, and it's going to be critical for the next 4 or 5 years.
Great. Thank you so much, John. Thank you, John. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Terry. Appreciate all the work that you're doing in your communities and in participating in the district grant process. Excellent. So we've got about 5 minutes here. I'm going to zoom through global grants. Like I said, you could probably spend 2 or 3 days on grants. But yeah, so let's see here. Okay. You can see my PowerPoint, I hope. So before applying for a global grant, find a mentor. The district has an international services committee. They meet 4 times a year. It's a great place to meet folks and partner and learn what works, what doesn't, and to get some ideas. We have this catalog of approved international services as well. And if you want a link to that, you can click it here. I'm happy to send out the PowerPoint. Just put your email in the chat and I will do that. For some reason, I can't put the file in the chat right now, but yes, give me your email and I'll do that. This catalog of approved international services has a listing of all the international global grants that are happening in our district and a synopsis of what they are. It's really excellent. You can contact the Global Grants Chair as well for assistance. And My Rotary Global Grants on My Rotary has a ton of resources. This is just a sampling of the ones that I think are helpful to get you started, but there's probably about 10 more documents that you can read up on. This guide to global grants, absolutely necessary. Okay, steps to becoming a qualified club for a global grant is similar for small club district grants. The 2 differences is the online learning module. You will want to take the grant management seminar or the grant management recertification. That is a scored lesson, and you need to score at least 80% to do that. In addition to that, the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, is different from for global grants than it is for small club district grants. So you'll want to get the right MOU form. Okay, applying for a global grant, there are some changes this year. So those of you who have worked on global grants, be aware of this. You want to complete the application on the District 709 Club Runner site, as well as the TRF Grant Center. Non-primary club contributions may be matched without being qualified. So this means Lockport is qualified. We're doing a global grant. We go to West Seneca, who is not qualified to do global grants, but loves our project and wants to give us $1,000. That $1,000 will now be matched by the district, even though West Seneca isn't qualified. Because Lockport's taking point and we're qualified, we're still going to match that now. District 7090 Rotarian contributions may be matched. So that may mean my friend over in St. Catharines is doing a global grant. I love it. My club doesn't have the capacity to give, but I do. So I'm going to give them a check for $500. The district will now match that $500. Okay. Club presidents must submit a letter of financial support prior to grant submission. This is new. And they have to be able to say to us that they have the funding in place and that they're ready to implement and execute the project after it's been approved. Another new guideline that's come up is that District 7090 clubs that are host and international, meaning an Ontario club who is the host and a US club in 7090 who is the international partner, will now be eligible not for $10,000 match, but $15,000 match, which is excellent. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to encourage clubs within our own districts to partner with each other and do global grants across the border. Now, if you're a US club partnering with a club in South Africa, the match will be $10,000. If you're a Canadian club partnering in South America, $10,000. Canadian club partnering with my club in Lockport, $15,000. So it's kind of nice. If you want to know more, you can reach out to Leslie Merch. She's the Global Grants Chair for the upcoming year. And let's see here. Sponsor roles. People always want to know what's the difference between host and international sponsor. This slide will give it out there. We got 1 minute here. What I really want to drive home is the power of funding, okay? So you're partnering with a club, your host sponsor gives $500, your club gives $12,000, the district will match $10,000, and then Rotary International will match another $8,000. So from your $12,000 investment, you suddenly have $30,000 to transform lives globally, okay? Some resources are here as well on the PowerPoint. So you have that there. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call, but I want to get you back to the Inspiring Lisa. So I'm going to drop the link to return to the plenary in the chat. And I hope you all enjoyed the session. It's a technical session. I tried to make it as fun and exciting as I could, but awesome. If you want to leave in the chat, we're always looking how to improve grant process. If there's a way we can improve it and make it faster and easier for you, let us know in the chat. And otherwise, I hope you enjoy the rest of the district conference.
Great job, Aaron. Great job, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.